Is this an attempt to gain the YouTube algorithm? Yes, it is, but it's for a good cause. So I'm asking you, the viewer of this video, to hear me out. This video is exactly what the title of it says it is. In a short, ADHD-friendly, TLDR kind of way, my grandfather was murdered by 3 doctors, and authorities in the states of Tennessee and Florida, despite the overwhelming evidence, not only don't care, but have also implied heavily that my grandfather and us as his family all deserved what happened to us. With that being said, this video will go into the very basics of what happened, since I aim to make this a series of videos. I have 4 parts in mind where I will describe in the following order. 1. What happened in the state of Tennessee. 2. How authorities in Tennessee reacted to the information. 3. What happened in the state of Florida. And 4. How authorities in the state of Florida reacted to that information. At first hearing, I think most reasonable people aren't surprised when I say that the American justice and policing system is maliciously incompetent. It seems to have this magical ability to let guilty criminals run free in this country whilst harshly punishing completely innocent people on a regular basis. I am still, however, to this day, holding on that the case I'm going to describe on this channel will one day end up in a courtroom and that my grandfather's killers will face punishment for what they've done to him. The reason I am beginning this series is to hopefully garner attention for those out there who are interested to join me in demanding that something be done about what I will adamantly claim is the biggest case of medical criminality in the United States since Charlie Cullen. Now, at the same time, many still reasonable people will be cautious and figure that if law enforcement and prosecutors in 2 different states have dismissed everything, surely they had a reason for doing so. Surely something must be amiss, and me and my family could be the ones twisting the details or coping away at the idea of there being no case. This is why, for the upcoming series on this channel, each episode or part that I described above will be edited to feature every single bit of evidence supporting every claim I will make. I also have a Twitter account which I will link in the description where, if this video in particular gets attention, I've already posted some of the story and subsequent proof on there. Without dancing around the topic any further, and once again reiterating that this is just the very basic, no names mentioned gist of what happened. In December of 2021, my grandfather and the rest of the family were suffering from a severe flu-like illness with fevers lasting well over 3 days that antibiotics were doing nothing for. It's worth mentioning my grandfather tested negative twice for COVID-19 using a store-bought test kit. What ended up happening was a licensed Georgia physician who was unlicensed in the state of Tennessee deliberately administered a toxic dose of hydrogen peroxide intravenously and via a nebulizer to my grandfather. This physician proceeded to abandon my grandfather as soon as she did this and refused to give any further care to him. At the time, the symptoms he experienced as a result of this being done to him mimicked further symptoms of the infection. So as my grandfather's condition worsened, he requested to be driven down to a medical clinic in Florida to 2 other physicians who offered and insisted that they would treat him. These 2 physicians proceeded to illegally experiment on my grandfather by administering IVs of ozone saline and plain ozone gas directly into my grandfather's veins, continued the IV hydrogen peroxide that the first physician prescribed for my grandfather, and they would eventually perform an illegal non-cross-matched blood transfusion in a hotel room where they treated him at. My grandfather was killed as a result of what they did to him, and all of this happened while my grandfather and the rest of the family were being lied to, fear-mongered, and defrauded during every important aspect of my grandfather's care. After my grandfather's death, the 2 Florida physicians proceeded to falsify by omission my grandfather's medical records, labeled his death as natural causes, and left his death unreported to any authorities. After this all occurred, it took me and the rest of the family in particular a while to comprehend what even happened. My mother began to investigate why my grandfather died at the time, why we were given no answers, and it took us a few months to make the muddy picture at the time as clear as it is now. Both me and my mother were completely unable to function, as at the time she had undiagnosed severe post-traumatic stress disorder, and I spent the entirety of almost every single day in 2022 either in a bed or on my couch tremoring, including in my sleep sometimes, from severe panic disorder with 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 or 6 panic attacks a day. In March of 2022, we hired an attorney and filed a lawsuit against the physician who administered the peroxide by IV and nebulizer initially to my grandfather in the family home. We won that lawsuit by default judgment in August of 2023 after the physician refused to show up for any court proceedings whatsoever whilst not retaining legal counsel. The only thing that this now former physician, I should say, did was voluntarily surrender their medical license and proceeded to join the sovereign citizen movement, a movement which the FBI regards as a potential domestic terror threat. We are still waiting for the damages judgment to be given as of the date of this video being recorded and uploaded. My grandfather's murder was reported to authorities in the state of Tennessee in April of 2022 and to authorities in Florida in December of 2022. We had tried to obtain a medical malpractice attorney in Florida in June of 2022. However, we were unable to do so due to Florida's draconian free kill law, which I urge you to Google, especially if you're a resident of the state of Florida. TLDR, it basically means you can't sue doctors if they kill someone you love if they don't have a surviving spouse or legal dependents under the age of 25. In Tennessee, the case was referred to the local district attorney's office with instructions from the local sheriff's office to refer it to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. However, they refused to do so, against the wishes of the local sheriff's office. In Florida, the local police of the city where my grandfather died did absolutely nothing for 6 months with no investigation of any kind before finally speaking to prosecutors there asking them for what to do, only for them to decline to have my grandfather's body exhumed for an autopsy, even though his death was never reported to anyone and was under suspicious circumstances, and then both offices pretty much declined to do anything further. Now, what I just described was only the very mild part of the incompetence of both states, and here is where it gets absolutely egregious. After these responses, it was then my family who decided to hire a private forensic pathologist to exhume and examine my grandfather's body. We had already given evidence in the form of testimony, pointers to witnesses, text messages, emails, some images, and about a couple of videos to authorities, but this was something that we tried to get the state of Florida to do, as they should have done from my understanding of Florida law. We paid quite a bit of money, to say the least, to hire this private forensic pathologist, who told us explicitly up front that if there was any sign my grandfather died of any kind of natural causes, that would be it. Instead, the pathologist found that my grandfather's death was directly caused by the actions of all three of the doctors involved in his care, and he labeled it a homicide. There was absolutely no evidence that my grandfather died of any kind of natural causes, and the pathologist stated that he believed the actions of the doctors who caused my grandfather's death were almost certainly criminal in both Tennessee and Florida. So here it was, the autopsy report and all of the supporting evidence, definitively showing that my grandfather was a victim of these three physicians. In the state of Tennessee, after receiving the autopsy report, prosecutors proceeded to literally admit that the Georgia physician who initially administered the peroxide to my grandfather was criminally guilty, and then proceeded to do the following. A, lie about the statute of limitations in regards to a prosecution by claiming it passed, even though Tennessee law clearly states that it tolls in the event of a suspect not being a resident of the state. It's also worth mentioning that the charge of reckless aggravated assault, which they basically said the physician is guilty of, also hasn't even reached the point of being past the statute of limitations. B, twisting the facts of the case to implicitly blame my grandfather and us as his family as if to say we deserved what happened. And C, literally say that the reason that they are not prosecuting the doctor for the crime which they admit she is guilty of is because my stepfather is purportedly a flat earther. Yes, you heard that correctly, and I will repeat it once again. The prosecutors involved in the case in the state of Tennessee have said that they will not prosecute a case of reckless aggravated assault because one single witness and co-victim of the case supposedly believes that the earth is flat. For the record, my stepfather does not believe that the earth is flat. There is no evidence that he has ever said that the earth is flat, and he never once in his life believed that the earth is flat. In the state of Florida, the story was similar to the first time, kinda. The local medical examiner's office, despite to my understanding having no legal jurisdiction over the case, proceeded to completely dismiss the findings of the autopsy with absolutely no basis, and then submit their opinion to the local state's attorney's office, literally telling them to ignore the case. The details of this part of the story get so utterly insane, it's difficult to briefly summarize. It involves things like the local medical examiner telling a journalist over text messages that the pathologist who examined my grandfather's body would, paraphrasing here, but quote unquote, do anything for money. The police proceeded to simply give the report to the local state's attorney's office, do absolutely nothing for another 5 months, and then the state's attorney's office in Florida simply dropped the case without any explanation at all. The investigator for their office refused to even speak with us, and their office didn't even have the decency to let us know that they dropped the case. The only reason we found out was a physician friend of the family's gave the investigator a call, and according to her, the investigator said in a short and irritated fashion that the case was dropped due to the autopsy being done privately. Yes, you heard that correctly. Having a private autopsy, which are regularly used in criminal proceedings in the United States, was the reason that this case was declined. When my mother went to the investigator's office of the local state's attorney in Florida, she, the investigator, refused to even see her despite being in the office and only gave her a paper to go to the police sergeant that was initially in charge of the case there. My mother went to her pretty much right after that, and despite also being in the office, even she, the police sergeant, refused to see my mother and instead sent out some rookie investigator to finally give a reason as to why the case was not being prosecuted, which was basically a mix of the autopsy being done privately, which is an absolutely insane and nonsensical reason, and then finally implicitly blaming my grandfather and us as his family for what happened due to both their own and Tennessee's complete inability to assess the facts of the case and the evidence that they were given properly. So there you have it. If you're a physician and you want to get away with illegal experimentation and murder of your patients, please come to Morgan County, Tennessee and Santa Rosa County, Florida. Local prosecutors can assure you, you will not be prosecuted. Tennessee has made it clear that as long as your victim is a conspiracy theorist or has any view on any topic that they personally might disagree with, you have free rein to kill as you please. In Florida, both prosecutors and the local medical examiner's office just won't even bother to look at what you're doing, period. Go right ahead. I'm Ethan Suto. Please subscribe to this channel. Everything you heard will be described in parts, in better detail in each of those parts, and with all of the evidence over a period of the next few months and when I feel it's best for me to go ahead and reveal more information. Me and my family are still in this fight. I will link my Twitter below. Please help by showing your support. Please stay tuned for all of the details in the future videos. I will try to make them each under 15 minutes long since I know that nobody has an attention span these days. Thank you.